What's up guys, Tech and Tyler, and today I'm going to be doing the video on the conversion of the neon clock to fluorescent. So I'm going to show you step by step on how I'm going to pull all this stuff out here and what I'm going to do to reconvert this to where it is fluorescent again, besides the blue border that I mentioned in the previous video on this. So what I'm going to do to start on disassembling this is I'm going to start by disconnecting all of the wiring in it. So there's a couple of connection points here that need to be undone, like this one here where the eyelet is that's sketchily hooked up. So I'm going to undo the connection there. I'm going to undo the connection on this tube here, which that's kind of funny. They didn't even connect this wire straight to the tube. They had a piece in the middle of it connecting it, which is very unneeded. So we have this wire disconnected, and then I'm going to disconnect this wire here. And separate these halves, which that just broke, so that connection wasn't even that good there. And then I'm going to disconnect this here. Disconnect it on this bulb here. Get rid of that wire. And then also I'm going to get rid of this wire here. And so now we have all of our connections for the neon disconnected. So now what I'm going to do is remove the actual tubes out of here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to undo these connections here where it is held down by these little copper wire pieces. So there's one there. There's one right here. If I can get it undone, it's being a little tricky, so I will just cut this. And now we have that one undone. And now since that's undone, I have to carefully try to pry the tube from the glue used, and it's very sketchy here. It's being held down with this black silicone, and I don't like that they use that on the tube because now all the paint that's on it is ripping off of it. So let me just keep trying to peel that off without breaking the tube, because I really don't want to break these. Alright, so that's one side there connected. And here's another side. So now we were able to take out the bulldog tube out of here. So let me now go set this in a safer spot here. And I'll eventually come back to cleaning up these pieces, but I just want to get them out of it for right now. So now with that one removed, I can try to peel up this piece of cardboard here. Which, man, I don't know what they use to put in this, but it's strong, whatever that is, that they have glued, that they use to glue this down, even with cardboard. Okay, so now we have that piece of cardboard removed. I'm going to have to come back with some sort of scraper to possibly remove the remaining cardboard pieces and smooth this down a little bit. But if I can't get it all, it's not a huge deal because it's going to be hidden, so it's not crazy, but I would like to attempt to try to get the rest of it out. So, all right, now this section's removed. So now let me get this one undone here. There's one of the wires removed there. And we'll remove this one here. And same thing, try to be very careful with this. This is an older bulb. The paint's already chipping off really bad on this one, so I'm gonna have to try to be very careful to remove this one because of the paint's already peeling, and I don't want to have to, you know, remove more of that paint, but it's already coming off, so I kind of have no choice here. But let me try to peel off some of this silicone off of here first to kind of help weaken this. Stuff is strong. I have no clue what kind of silicone they used on this, but whatever this stuff is, it is good, and I wish I had some of this for some projects that I got going on. Alright, so with that one kind of peeled off as possible, I'm going to try to carefully now peel this one off. Alright, that corner came off. So now let me try to get this corner here off very carefully. Alright, so now that side came off. So now we have the cerveza neon part out of there now. I'm going to set this over to the side as well. And now let me try to forcefully get this part out, which that came out way easier than the bottom half. So now we have that piece of cardboard out, and so now we have a big mess of here of paint chips and everything. So let me get this vacuumed out, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, now with the can vacuumed out, I am now next going to remove the transformer off the side of here. So first I'm going to undo the power connections and get these all disconnected. Alright, so now power is disconnected from everything. I can now remove the two bolts here and here. So take the nut and washer off of there, and then pull the bolt and washer off of that side. And then now I'm going to unscrew this bottom half here. Get that bolt and washer out, and this nut and washer out, and now the transformer is free. And if we take a look at this transformer, we can see that somebody wrote good on it, and this is a, if you can see it right there, it's a 5,000 volt transformer, which might have been the correct, you know, voltage output to power all of the tubes that were in it, but since we're only going to be running the blue border, it's kind of overkill. So I'm going to eventually order a new ballast for this that's smaller, more lightweight, that's electronic, which I'm not a huge fan of using stuff like that in this. I like to use original components, but because of the weight of how heavy it is, and I want to keep this kind of light because this is pretty light as it is now without that ballast in it or transformer in it, I want to make it a little lighter. So I'm going to try to get a newer, smaller one for this clock, and I'll probably only need to order like a 3,000 volt, maybe not even lower than that for this, to make it to where I can run the neon and put it in the bottom instead of in the top like I was saying in the previous video. If I can get a smaller one, I'll put it down here and then have the ballast with it here, and then I won't have to worry about the weight as much. Or I might even just take it and put it in the back. Since we have all these holes back here, I might mount it back here and mount the 2 fluorescent ballasts closer under here, so I can leave room for the tubes here. So now that everything has been gutted out of the clock and all that remains is the motor and the power cord, I'm going to flip this around here now, and you can see where there are 2 bolts here that are unnecessary. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these 2 bolts here. If I can get it to catch the threads, which that one, it was just sitting in there. This one wasn't even really being held in there at all either. Okay, so now with that removed, I'm going to loosen the 2 screws, the one here and the one here, which these are actually already pretty loose. That one was a little bit more screwed down. So I'm going to remove that bolt and then remove this bolt. And I'm also going to replace this with a chain. Whoever owned this before used a piece of wire here, which it's pretty strong, but I'm going to do it properly with a chain and make it shorter. So now that we have all that removed, I will more than likely end up replacing this cord as well because it's a little crushed here. I'll put a new brown cable on it. I got plenty of brown cable, so I'll replace this with a new one eventually. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some sockets for the fluorescent tube and start trying to figure out how to mount those in here. But before I do that, I'm going to try and see if I can scrape off some of this stuff first. So I'm going to go grab a scraper and I'll be back. Okay, now I have the whole inside of the can scraped out and cleaned as best as possible. And what I used to do it was one of these knives here that's pretty unique, where it's one of those ones that you can flip it into a razor blade and then flip it out into a scraper. This thing's actually come in handy quite a bit. I like this tool. It's pretty unique, and it did pretty good in this scenario with scraping out the rest of the cardboard stuck to the bottom and just kind of getting it even smoother than it was with all this glue. This stuff's pretty strong, so I have no clue what was used to hold that down, but now we're all clean enough to where we can start working on figuring out how to mount everything. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to use the 2 holes here and mount a socket here and a socket here, and then I'll come down and mark 2 holes down here, drill 2 holes into the bottom of the can to mount the other 2 sockets, and then can get the wiring in between it all. And I'm going to make this preheat so that, because I have plenty of preheat sockets that I can use to mount into this, and it'd just be easier to make it. I'd prefer it to be preheat. It was probably preheat originally, so I'm going to keep it preheat, and it'd be cool to plug it in and see the neon come on and then the flashing of the fluorescent tubes come on. So let me go and find some sockets and we'll get started on mounting those. Okay, so now I have a couple of sockets from donor fixtures, and I have these that I'm going to use in it, which, yes, they are different, but these I don't particularly like to use in fixtures, and the fixtures these came from don't have all their parts, so they're just parts fixtures. So these ones will be better for the light, because I need ones with holes in it, which I just realized this one actually doesn't have a hole in it. So I'm going to have to grab a different one with a hole in it, which I actually have another one of these that I just found to match those. And so they're all about relatively the same height, so it will work perfectly fine for what I'm going to do. And then if I find another one that matches these, I'll swap it out, but I'm going to use these for right now. So these 2 are going to go here, on the light, which will fit perfectly right there. So I'm going to take the nut that came off of the back of the hanger and then take the bolt from it. So the nut sits in this little piece here, and then this will go through it and be held with tension also by the hanger, which I'm going to remove this wire off of the hanger. Which this stuff can be tricky sometimes to manipulate. Okay, so now with that one off of there, I can now take the edge of the can here with the hole in it right there, and I'm going to put the screw in the back of it like that, and then put the socket inside of it there. And you got to make sure you keep tension on both of them, so that way this stays even, and same with the socket. So I'm just holding these. Sorry about the camera angle and it not being the greatest. I'm trying to do an overhead view of it versus it on the stand. So now with the socket in place there and this in place, I can try to keep tension on both the socket and this while tightening it. It's a little tricky trying to get these both to work together, but it is working. Okay, I think that's good enough. Yes. Okay, so now with that bolt in place, this is held down nicely, securely with the hanger. So now I'm just going to repeat and do the same thing on the other side. And that's kind of why I wanted to use these sockets as well for up here, because the hole here is bigger, which allows me to put the bigger nuts inside of it to get a tighter fit. So now with the nut inside of that socket, I'm going to remove this wire here on this hanger. Stuff always wants to fall. Okay, now with that off of there, get rid of that. I can take the socket, put the nut back in there, get it nice and flat. And same thing here with this one, repeat. Put the bolt through the hanger, put it through that hole, and then start working that to get that tighter. So now trying to keep tension on that and on the hanger. Kind of tighten the screw here. Try to keep both these in line. Again, holding the socket and trying to keep the hanger level. Alright, so now that is secured in there. So now we have the first two sockets mounted right here. So now what I'm going to have to do is grab a F15 T8 bulb, and I'm going to put the bulb in that socket, and then also put another socket down in here and get them in the sockets how it would be mounted in a fixture. But before I do that, I need to remove this wire out of this connector here. And usually what I do to remove these is I just take a little screwdriver and I just forcefully push this down on that connector there enough to get it to where it will bend, and then once you get it in there, you can pop the wires out. It's the easiest way that I've learned how to do it without having to break these sockets like this one. I was trying to take it out and then this broke here. So now with this socket, there's a screw and a nut on the bottom here. I want to try to remove those because I'm going to use different ones to hold it. So let me try to get that out, and that chipped off the bottom of the socket a little bit. These sockets are very cheap, so they're pretty brittle, especially for their age. So okay, now with that one taken out, I can put this bulb back on that socket, put it back on here, and have it sit like that, which if you can tell, that's a perfect fit for that side right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball that, and I'm going to take a mechanical pencil and I'm just going to get that eyeballed, hold pressure down on it, and get the bulb removed out of there. Scoot this back just a smidge so it's not super tight, and I'm going to put a pencil mark right there so I know that I need to drill my hole for that one. And then same on this side. I'm going to put the socket on this bulb and get the bulb there as well. Same ordeal, perfect fit. And I'm going to hold tension on it, take this bulb out, scoot it back just a smidge. Well, now it slips, so now I got to redo it again. So get that back in there. I'm going to go ahead and scoot it back just a little bit, get it leveled. Now take this out, and then now I'll make my pencil mark for that. So now that I have both marks on the back of the can for those sockets, now I can drill these out for bolts, and then after doing that I can get 2 bolts, 2 nuts, and I'll use the same hardware that was in this originally for everything else and reuse it for the new stuff. So the bolts and the nuts, I'm just going to reuse all of it that came from this because it works and it fits. So I'll be able to take same nuts from the ballast, slip that inside of there, perfect fit. So now I'm going to get a drill and drill bit, and I'm going to drill these 2 holes out, and then we'll get those 2 sockets mounted. Okay, now the holes are drilled out for the sockets. So now I can take this socket and one of the screws, and I can put it right through the bottom here. And this time I don't have to worry about using the hangers on this. I can just bolt these right in, no problem. So let me get that one. Set up here, and then get this socket in here tight. Which, that screw is not the correct size actually. I'm surprised that it's not the correct size. I thought these bolts, oh, it's the wrong screw. Okay, so I was using the wrong screw that came with the hardware. So now with the correct screw, I can get that popped into there and start tightening down the screw for this socket. Alright, so that one's nice and secure and tightened down. So now we'll take the other socket, which this one's going to be a little tricky because I don't have any more of these and I have this one. I kind of would like to use all of the original same style ones just so it makes it a little easier. So I'm going to try to go find another one of these three and I'll be right back. Okay, so I found one of these style sockets, which actually already has a pre-put in nut from the factory that's press fitted, so that will work perfectly fine. So I'll just have to use a different sized screw with different threads in it. And I have on my bench here a whole entire little plastic container here full of different types of screws. Whoops, sorry about that. That came from different fixtures and all sorts of randomness. And it's full of different types of screws from fluorescent fixtures. So here we go. Found one right here that I know will work because this came from a fluorescent light that I had stripped apart. So now I have the proper size screw for the threads, which is great. So now I can take this socket and use that screw through this one. And just to be sure the fitment of the bulb in the sockets, that one's perfect. And this one's perfect even with a different socket. So let me get that tightened down. Nice and snug there. So, alright, so now that's all good. So now we have all four of the sockets for the fluorescent bulb. So now I'm going to grab some wire, which it has to be solid copper to fit into these connectors for the bulbs, which I'm also just now realizing I made a mistake and should have wired these up actually first before installing them, because these are the sockets that are fed from underneath. So let me go back and take these out, put the wire in, and have all of the wire leads ready to go off of the sockets, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so I have now, and I did this all off camera because it's a little bit of a pain and tricky, but I have all of the wires connected to the sockets now, and I even went ahead and mounted the starter sockets on the side here, which were a bit of a pain because I had to add an angle, drill the holes, and put these metal screws in here to hold them. So it took a little while. So I went ahead and got all that done. And now I also went ahead and pre-drilled the holes here and here for the ballasts. And the ballasts that I'm going to use for this are this one is an advanced ballast, and this one is a Keystone ballast. These ballasts only go up to 20 watts. I didn't want to use any of the ballasts I had that were multi-tap. No, well, not multi-tap, but that went up to 22 watts because I want to save those for other projects that I'm going to use circle line bulbs in, so I wanted to keep those for other projects. But I have the holes already drilled out and everything for the ballast. I'm going to put them underneath here, which will fit perfect, because my idea, like I said in the other video, to put them down here won't work because I want to keep them away from the electrodes of the neon border. So I put them in the center there against the clock, which will be perfectly fine. So now I'm going to take some bolts and some nuts and fasten those down. So let me look and see if I can find a couple of bolts and nuts that will fit perfectly inside of there. So I'm going to grab a couple of bolts and nuts from the little plastic jug here of stuff I have, because I have a bunch of bolts and nuts from fluorescent fixtures that will work perfect for this application. There's so much stuff in this container, I'm gonna have to dump it out to find what I need, so bear with me 1 second. Let's see. So I got 3 bolts and one of the nuts. I found 2 more nuts that will fit. There's 2 other ones. Let me find a matching set of them, if possible. Yes, okay, so now I have all the screws and bolts and nuts I need to hold that down now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off of the bench. I'm going to put one of them there. Get that one finger tight. Put another one right there. Get this one finger tight as well. And then repeat with the same 2. And I'm also, with this fixture, because it's going to be wall mounted, I'm going to have it in my workshop hanging up, but if I ever do decide to hang it up on a wall with sheetrock, I'm going to put some tape on the back of these screws, or some sort of little rubber feet, so that way it helps not mark up the wall, and that way it will kind of be smoother on the wall. Okay, so now we have both of the ballasts here with the bolts and nuts, so I'm just going to flip it over here and tighten these up a little bit more. And these also have little crush washers on the back of them, so it will help secure it better to the back of the metal of the frame here. Alright, so all of those are tight now, so now all we have to do is wire this up now. So what you have to do in this scenario for preheat is you have to have on one of the ballasts, which I'm going to wire up. I'm going to wire up the power side to both of these first. So I'm going to take these 2 wires, the top one on this ballast and this bottom wire on the second ballast, and I'm going to bring these over to the cord here. And now that I'm thinking of it, I kind of want to add a switch on this. Actually, I kind of want to add 2 switches on this clock now, so I can have the capability of turning off the neon and same with the fluorescent, in case I just want it to be, you know, the clock running and not have the light on it all the time. So let me find 2 switches and get these holes pre-drilled and the switches installed, and I'll show you how I did it once I come back. Okay, so now I have the holes drilled, and I put 2 switches in the bottom of it right here. 2 little toggle on and off switches for the fluorescent and the neon. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull out my container of wire nuts here, and I'm going to start wiring everything up. And I like these little small blue ones. These work really good for this type of smaller gauge wire, and they just make things look a lot cleaner. So what I'm going to have first is I'm going to take the first switch, and I'm going to make this one this one's going to be the neon one, and then this will be the fluorescent one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up power for the switch on this side for the top one there, and then also the bottom one here. I like to get all of my wires in line together. Make sure that's out of the way here for the tube. And unfortunately, as I was drilling the hole for these, I hit the socket here, and it kind of messed up this screw, or the nut in the socket. So I'm gonna have to come back and fix that. So I'm just gonna take this and I'm just gonna make it cleaner looking like that. So now we have power on the first switch here, or the second switch for the fluorescent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the end of this one here. I'm going to re-strip this, get a nice fresh end on it, and then I'll take some of the wire that I used for the sockets here, and I'm going to hook up an extension lead from the switch for power. So I'm going to take this wire here and I'm going to neatly put it underneath the other switch, and I'm just going to have it come right through the center there to keep it all nice and clean for routing the wires. I'm going to strip the end of this wire. Now, these strippers are not meant to strip, I think this is 18 gauge solid copper, but it's okay. I know how to do it without messing up the wire because I'm an electrician, but I know that those aren't the correct wire strippers for this. So now what I'll do is I'll take the hot side of the switch for the fluorescent and the hot side of the clock, and I'll get those two together with the power, remake that connection so that connection's all nice and good. And then what I will do is I'll save these for the neon transformer last. So now what I got to do is I'm going to take this socket here and I'm going to hook up the first lead from the ballast to this side of the socket down here. Wire nut those together. And then now this side of the fluorescent socket has to go to the starter. So now I will take these two connections, connect those together. So now those are all good. And then same with this side, have to come off of starter socket to the other side of the fluorescent socket, or tombstone, also known as. Make that connection. So that leaves us with this one, which will be our neutral, and I'll use this one as the neutral as well. So same thing on the other side. You take your wire from your ballast, hook it up to the other side of this ballast, so now we're on the bottom ballast. And with these little blue wire nuts and this copper wire, you don't want to tighten them too much because these wire nuts will strip out this thinner 18 gauge copper wire. So let me get these wires pushed here, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to zip tie the stuff and make it a little bit cleaner. I'm just trying to get everything situated and hooked up in a decent time span, because I know this video has already been quite long, but I did mention in the other video of this that it would probably be about 30 minutes to an hour to do this project. So, but now that we have that connection from this side of the tombstone to starter socket there, we'll connect the other side of the starter socket to the other side of the tombstone and get that all nice and clean. So now with those connected, we can take the neutral side of the clock here, and I'm actually going to clean up this one. That one could use some cleaning. The other one on that side was good, but this one's a little thin, so strip that one back, remake that up. So now we will hook up our neutral side, and I know that you're supposed to obviously have them, you know, polarized for power, but in this case, this light here doesn't have a polarized plug, so it's not, you know, too big of a deal. I probably will come back, like I said, and replace this cord with a new one, and I might put one with a ground on it, just because, you know, I also have the neon transformer in here, which that should have been grounded, but it wasn't. So I'll probably come back and change it out with a 3-prong plug at some point. But for now, I'm just going to do this so I can show you all the conversion. So let me see if I can fix this socket really quickly, because it's all messed up at the moment. See if I can tighten this screw up here. I think it stripped out the threads a little bit on it, so I'll get it as tight as I can. So I'll have to come back and replace the nut that's in it, but for right now it's fine. If it's just a smidge loose, it's okay. So now that we have everything hooked up for the fluorescent side, we are done with the fluorescent side. Now all that's left is the neon side. So let me grab 2 bulbs and 2 starters, and I'll put these inside of here and I'll show you those working. Okay, so now I have bulbs and starters. So the bulbs that I'll be putting in there in this are these nice older Philips bulbs. These bulbs are before they came out with the Alto ones, so both of these bulbs have normal steel end caps, steel aluminum end caps, and the etches on them are not green, they're like a brownish color. I have a whole stockpile of these bulbs, so I have a bunch of them I can use in this fixture. So now we have that bulb in here, and then we'll get this one in here. I'm gonna have to fix that socket real quickly because the the little nut fell out of it, so let me get that fixed really quickly. Okay, so now the socket is fixed, so now it will stay still now. So now I can put the bulb in on this side. So now we are good with the bulbs. And I got two starters randomly out of my collection of starters. So we have a GAM Pack FS2 and we have a Surelight FS2 that I will be putting in here, and these mount right on the sides of the clock motor, and with the screws that I put in it, they fit perfectly fine, which is great. So now that's all good and done. So now what I'm going to do is plug it in, and I will show you the fluorescent lights in it now working. So we have power now, so if I flip the switch on the right here, we get some preheat blinking going on, and as you can tell, both the lights now perfectly are working. So let me turn it off, turn it back on, get some preheat going on here, which is great. One of these ballasts has a little bit of noise, not too loud though, but I kind of like the little bit of hum that it's got. It makes it, you know, sound like an older fluorescent fixture. But now, so the fluorescent light portion is working on it. Let me grab the plexi here, and I will set that on top of here, and I'll show you what that looks like with the fluorescent tubes on. And I think that actually looks pretty good. Let me turn out the light here. Get a better look at it. Now, like I said in the previous video, I'm gonna have to come back with some let me adjust the camera real quick. This tripod is a little finicky here. There we go, that's a better picture. Sorry if this picture, if it wasn't as in focus as it should have been, but yeah, now with the fluorescence in it, it actually looks really nice. It's not bright at all either because of this black paint that's on it. As you can tell, there's some blemishes where some paint's missing and it's chipped away, but I plan to come back through and repaint some of this with some really dark black paint to cover up all of it. But I think this looks fantastic with the fluorescence in it now versus that weird white and blue neon going on inside of it. So yeah, so that's step one of it done. That turned out, you know, really good how that looks actually. So let me cut the light back on, and now we will proceed to the next step, which is getting the neon transformer mounted inside of it. So what I'm going to do is, in order to get that to fit in here, it would be kind of nice if I can put it underneath actually of these two ballasts here, just so that way it has the wires inside are long enough to reach the connections, because the wires that are on the neon ballast are not that long. They're only probably maybe about, I don't know, it's not even a foot of wire here. So I'm kind of thinking of mounting this possibly right there, and if I mount it right there, that should give me enough room, which no, I can't mount it there because of the fact that it's too tall to fit into the can. So I'm gonna have to mount it up on the top like I said before. It's just the only problem is I'm gonna have to extend these leads coming down, and I don't want to have to use wire nuts for that, but I guess I will have to, just because I don't have the proper like connectors and stuff for this. Wire nuts are better than nothing that was inside of it, I'll have to probably get some better connectors at some point, but for right now I'm just going to use wire nuts, even though, you know, I said in the previous video they're not the greatest thing to use, but I mean they are better than nothing. I mean they do kind of insulate it a little bit, but not like how you would think. And I'm trying to see if I can get this crimp off of here without having to cut this wire, because this wire is so short already as it is. I want to just be able to remove this crimp off of here, not have to cut any more off of it. So let me find my wire strippers, which they disappeared on me. Just, you know, like tools like to just vanish on you and just disappear. Oh, they're in my back pocket. Okay. I do that all the time, even at work. You'll have tools on you. Oops. That's not what was supposed to happen. You have tools on you and they just want to vanish on you and disappear. Okay, these aren't going to work, so let me actually grab a pair of linemen's to do this. Okay, so now I have the excuse me, the holes drilled out in the top of the can here for the transformer, and I'm actually going to use a different transformer than the one that came with it. I'm going to be using this older Jefferson Electric, as you can see right there, transformer, and this one's only a 4,000 volt transformer versus a 5,000. So hopefully in doing that it will, you know, not run the bulb as hard, considering it's only going to be one tube now. And I've already gone ahead and extended these wires as well for the blue border, because these wires on this one are short. But I got the holes pre-drilled, so now what I'm going to do is put all of the bolts in for the transformer. And get that nice and snug down inside of here. And like I said, I'll eventually come back and replace the this transformer with a newer one that's lighter, but this one is a little bit lighter than the excuse me than the one that was inside of it, so that way it's not as heavy, because the other one had some weight. This one's got some weight too, but this transformer is definitely lighter than the other one for sure. Not by much, but definitely lighter. And so anything that's lighter will definitely help with how much strain is being put on the chain to hang this up with. Now I got to take this bulb out here to help me get the nut on the screw underneath of here. I figured this was going to be a little tricky putting this one on, but not too bad. So that one down there on the bottom is good. Same thing over here. Move that bulb and get the nut on the screw on the very bottom one here as well. This one's a little bit tricky, but I got that one as well. So let me get these all nice and snug. I also drilled the holes closer to the back of the fixture, the back of the can, so that way most of the weight is towards the back of it and not towards the front, to where it wants to kind of pull it forward as much. It's kind of more of an even load, to where it kind of keeps it more steady on the wall, you know, flat and not hanging or anything like that, all lopsided or crazy. Okay, so one more screw to snug down, and then this will be good. Alrighty, so now that one's all done. So now I can put the bulb back in the fixture here. So now we just have left is to hook up the power wires from the transformer to the switch. And I will have to extend these as well. But in this case, since this is a little bit more of a power drawer versus these little fluorescent ballast, I'm going to actually use some thicker wire for this to go to the switch, since the switch has thicker wire on it as well. So let me go and get that connected really quickly, and then get it hooked into the power of the clock and motor and everything, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, so now we have power hooked up to the transformer and the switch, and what I did was just take one wire from the transformer, hooked it to the neutral side, and then took the other one with some thicker lamp wire and came from the hot here, and then that runs down to the switch going down to here, and then comes back to the transformer. So now with that connected, all of that is done. So now I can flip this over, and then once that's flipped over, which I can hear a little bit of metal inside of here, so let me shake out what's left. I vacuumed this out as best as possible each time I would drill any holes, but sometimes a couple of little stray pieces get in there. So now that we have everything hooked up, I can now take the actual plexi piece here, and I can make up the connections for that now, which is going to be a little tricky. And I also am going to use on the tubes the little rubber insulators. So let me find those and grab those, and I'll show you what those look like. So these are what you're supposed to use on the end of the neon tubes, or the electrodes are. They're little rubber insulators that slip over them. I have a bunch of these from a bunch of lights that I've gotten. So all I have to do here is take the copper wire that I have added from the light, well, from the transformer, and then just wrap the wires around the electrode and get these kind of formed up, and then slip this over it as nice as possible, being very careful. And same on the other side here. Now this side you have to be even more careful about, which I know you can't really probably see it at the moment. I'll show you this in a second. But you got to be really careful with doing this and not putting too much pressure on the bulb, especially because this side that I'm working on now is the side with the gas filled in. So, alright, now that's done, and it fits with the little pieces on it. So let me show you really quickly what I've done. So let me flip this over. So as you can see, I have the two power wires for the neon transformer going up to the bulbs here, connected with the little rubber insulator boots on it right here. Sorry the camera angle isn't the greatest, but I'm trying to do this and show it off at the same time. So alrighty, now that we have that connected, I can plug this back in, and we could flip on the fluorescent light, which that comes on great, and now the neon, which comes on and works perfect now. So let me turn the light out, and we'll take a look at it in the dark here. So now with the light off, let's do fluorescent first, get some of the nice preheat, and then now the neon. So now that looks so much better with the fluorescent tubes underneath, and then with the neon also. And this ballast, the neon transformer, I will say, is a little hummy, does buzz a little bit, but it's not too big of a deal because it's not going to be a permanent one for this. This is just to, you know, get it up and running, and then I'll come back later and change it. But it is kind of, you know, using this as a sound cavity, and it's kind of buzzy and hums a little bit, but it's alright, not too big of a deal. But yeah, I think that looks fantastic with the neon and the fluorescent. And if I turn off the fluorescent, that's what you get with the neon, and then turn the fluorescent back on, turn off the neon, that's what you get with the fluorescent. So you can have it with neon and without it, and then you can have it with neon and then without the fluorescent now. So I think that looks overall fantastic. I think that looks way better than having, you know, the green and then the white. Now it's just white with a blue border, and I think that looks really, really nice and smooth now. So let me go ahead and turn the light back on. And now, since this is technically completed, I will get the wooden border put back around it and then put the arms back on it for the time, and we will look at the finished product. Okay, so now with the wood border around it and the time hands put back in place, which they're not fully put down because I still got to do a little bit of more work to it, bending these back and cleaning it and wiping this down and all that. And then obviously I still need to fix these little wires here. I'll have to come back and do that because, like I said, this isn't the final product. This is just like 99% done pretty much. There's still a couple more things I got to do, but not a whole lot left. But the majority of what needed to be done to this is now done, and it turned out great. So I'm going to, like I said, I got to still do that. I need to get some dark paint to touch up some of these spots here as best as I can. I might even also paint the back inside of it black to kind of help if this ever gets scratched again, to darken the back of it, so that way, you know, if it gets scratched again, light doesn't pop through. But obviously I'd not paint those for sure because you need to see all the lettering and the little number, the minute marks and all. So let me turn back off the light again real quick, and we'll take a look at this again. So over here we have on the right, we got fluorescent, which looks fantastic in person. That looks, it's not, you know, it's a nice brightness. It's not super bright, it's not super dim, it's like perfect. And then if I turn on the other one, we also get the neon on it now, which that looks fantastic. The white and the blue, I think that looks so good, so nice, and it just fits this so much better now versus, like I said, the green and then the white and it being really dim and it doesn't blending well. So this overall looks amazing. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. And I also want to say, you know, thank you if you stayed tuned to watch through the whole video. I know it was a longer video. I do want to make longer videos of doing stuff like this, the teardowns, the rewires, the just overall working on stuff and just modifying things. So if you've watched through this whole video, thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot. It makes me happy knowing that y'all watch these and enjoy watching them as well, and have stayed tuned through the whole process of it. And I know this isn't, you know, the greatest way to do this, how I did it. There's better ways of doing it, but you know, for what it is, I think it works really good. And you're not going to see it inside, so it doesn't need to be perfect, but everything is secure and working good, so that's all that matters. And yeah, I'm just overall super happy with how this is turned out. And if you hear a little bit of rattling and buzzing, it's the transformer buzzing in here, and then the rattling are from the arms because they're not screwed all the way. They're kind of just set there in its place for right now. But yeah, I'm just, again, really happy with how this turns out. I think this looks phenomenal, and I hope y'all think it looks great as well. And if y'all have any input on it or what I should have done differently, and or what y'all think of it, let me know in the comments. And keep a lookout for more stuff I do, including stuff like this or just anything. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I appreciate it a whole lot, and thank you. Until next time.